started the recording, and now it wants me to uh, tell it where to save it. So I think that should be good right there. Cool.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Julie.
How's it going?
Here comes
Hi, Julie.
everybody. Hello, Carl. Kelly.
How you doing?
Excellent. How you doing?
Good.
All right.
Hello.
Okay. So we can let others join as they will, and we can start here. And I am recording. I'm recording this, and I'll post it online. I have a YouTube channel. I'll probably post it on that. So,
Okay.
if you ever want to look at my demonstrations for perspective and rendering,
Oh boy.
so that
I could use a refresh.
flashback.
Will you send it to me after the call?
I'll send you the link. Yeah.
I'll probably just go back through and just watch this
Yes.
to look at myself and hear myself over and over again after the.
Yeah. I've gotten used to seeing myself on recorded because it's like pandemic. It's like, what are you gonna do?
Right.
Like, you just realize, like, I had to make sure that my background looked respectable, even though there are still some stacks of things.
Right. As long as we don't see laundry. You tell me when you want me to start. Are we good?
Yeah, let's go. Let's begin. So,
Okay.
just briefly. So, I know Patrick because Patrick went to school at Harrington Institute of Interior Design, and way back early on in my teaching career in Chicago. And now Patrick is in Detroit and has his design firm, Patrick Thompson Design. And I thought it'd be nice for you to hear from Patrick and have an opportunity to talk to someone who's doing cool stuff in the city of Detroit.
Thank you.
Take it
away. All right. So, hi everyone. I'm Patrick Thompson. I'm pretty casual, so if anyone has a question, just interrupt me. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, how I got into interior design, how I started my business, and I'll end up talking probably pretty quickly. I have a small presentation that will show a project that we did a few years ago for, if any of you have ever had Sanders candy or the Sanders hot fudge cream puff. We did Sanders flagship store. And so I have the process. I took all the presentations that we gave to the client all the way from beginning of concept to professional photography. So I'll take you guys through that. And then we should have time for questions after that. Okay?
All right.
Yeah.
Kelly, could you mute your mic, please?
All right. So, all right. So my background, so when I went to Harrington, it was actually not really a second career for me. I had graduated with a degree in historic preservation. So design, furniture making, appreciation for the built environment and aesthetics was kind of presented to me at a very young age. I went to school for historic preservation, graduated, did not know what to do. So I worked as a carpenter, and I basically saw an infomercial on interior design at Harrington College of Design late at night one night, which was kind of cool. And I ordered the course catalog, and I read every one of the courses and thought, every single one of these things I have a passion for, an opinion about, and an interest in. So I made a very quick decision to move to Chicago. Went through the program, got my second bachelor's degree fairly quickly because I had already had one bachelor's, and a lot of the classes that I had taken, believe it or not, I had taken color theory, drafting, design principles. They were all classes that just interested me in my first degree, and never really realized that that I was taking all these interior design courses until I realized that they counted. I was at Harrington. I did, as a senior there, I did a special for HGTV Designer Finals, which was kind of interesting. So I got a bit of adult, I don't know about adult, I guess just like professional perspective of what a real client was like at a pretty early age in my career. I think I was like 25 then. I worked for a hospitality design firm in Chicago for about 5 years, Simeone Deary Design Group. They're now, when I was there were 6 people. When I left, there was 13, and now I think they're over 50, and they're on Michigan Avenue, and they've merged with an architecture firm, and they're a pretty well-known female-owned interior design firm in the industry. I moved back to Detroit. I did a short stint working at Design Within Reach, selling furniture. Was laid off in 2009 and decided to start my own company, PTD, Patrick Thompson Design. I was always very intentional about not just doing one type of design. I had done hospitality design, but I had my carpentry background was in high-end residential. So, and a lot of my design process and beliefs were, regardless of what you're designing, you can follow the same set of rules and principles and really just and the main goal is a successful project. I always say, whether you're designing a hotel or a shoe, I think that some of the same sensitivities go into both. And really it's problem solving, right? And asking the right questions. So when I started PTD, the first project was a kitchen. Then we immediately did a children's clothing like boutique. And I was like, okay, this is actually something. Like I seem to have what it takes to do this. And people were listening to me. So that was 2009. Here, I'm going to do, I think, so if I go to share my screen, I'll turn over to a little portfolio, not really a portfolio. So I have this set up. I'll do a presentation, and then I have our website pulled up too, that if we want to ask about specific projects. So we're now a team of, it fluctuates anywhere between 10 and 15. We have about a 5,000 foot in downtown Detroit. And we do projects. We're doing projects in New York City, Nashville, Detroit, Northern Michigan. So we're still in the growing phase. I think the size is good for me and for the team. I'm able to still be very involved and hands-on and really everything that happens in the office, but small enough to care and be still an intimate boutique design firm, but large enough to go after some decent size projects. So any questions or anything before I share my screen? Okay. Hang on real quick. Okay, so this isn't great. It says this browser doesn't support sharing. To share content, switch to the desktop app or use the latest version of Chrome or Firefox. So I didn't plan for that, and I'm not the tech person in my office. So Duffy, would you like to advise on what you want me to do right now? I can switch to the desktop app, but I'm probably going to jump out and have to jump back in.
You know, if you could email it to me.
You want to do that?
And then I can, maybe what we can do is I could open it. You could start talking about something on your website.
Yeah, sure. Let me see. Yeah. And you could pull up.
I could pull it up, and then you can talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's my fault. I'm the Mac user.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm on a Mac too, and it's sometimes this doesn't. Although I guess our system at Harper is primarily PC, so that might be.
So I just sent you the presentation, so you should have it.
Okay.
So if you want to just check, we can.
Alrighty.
So what I'll ask. So our I guess level of interior design. This is anywhere from freshman to, I mean, I guess what level interior design students are we talking with today?
We are an associate's program, so Harper's a community college.
Okay.
In Palatine, and we're so it's so it's first 2 years.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
But we do have, similar to Harrington, we have students who are new, right out of college, and some students that are returning from different careers.
Okay.
So, so that's
so similar to Harrington, some second career. Okay.
Yeah, similar to Harrington, but nothing. Like we don't have time to get into the same level of detail
Yeah.
or sophistication with design projects.
So probably like a lot of the studio stuff and business practices are probably missed. So if there's anyone that is looking to start their own firm or curious about fees or any of that stuff, please feel free to ask. So did you get that presentation, Duffy?
It just came in.
Okay.
So let's see.
And I really mean that. If anyone has any questions, I'm pretty good about answering anything. I think that any advice that I was able to obtain starting my business, I really worked in a firm for a short period of time, and out of those 5 years, half of it or 2 years of it, I was an intern. So I started PTD pretty cold with really understanding like how to structure fees and how to I made a lot of it up and kind of read a lot and was able to find a few mentors along the way. So
Yeah. Well, until I can get this, it came up. It's taking a second for the message to open.
okay.
So just I know our students do often want to know things that you don't get to in school, like how do you decide what to charge?
Sure.
Anybody interested in that?
Sure, that's always good information.
Yeah.
Well, it varies. There's definitely some multipliers out there that, in a lot of ways, whether, what I liked about Harrington was it was a pretty technical school. So a lot of the, whether you're doing interior decoration or interior design, I think they're different, but they're both equally as important. But a lot of the way that I structure PTD is probably more like an architecture firm. We, obviously you bill for your time, and some projects are hourly, some projects are a fixed fee or a flat fee or a not to exceed. So there's all different structures. And really, the hourly, Interior Design Magazine does a great, every year they put out like an annual report that shows what like median interior designers are making, and it ranges anywhere from like a junior level to an intern to an interior designer to a senior designer, project manager, and it does a really good job. So it helps you kind of understand, and it's across the board, across the whole country. So that's a good way to start. Kind of like you can start with the salary that you want to make, right? And then the annual report, we use it as a gut check. It also will give you like average fees per project. And, there was a book that we had, there's some good books out there that are about business principles of interior design. And you can look at square footage, you can look at hourly, you can look at percentage of a project. And really there's no one way that works. And we use all of those in our office to figure out our fees. I can tell you that when it was myself working out of a spare bedroom in my home, I think my fees ranged anywhere. I mean, this was 15 years ago, anywhere from $25 to $65 an hour. There was some times where I was doing color consultation when I first started off, and I was starting to even see if I was going to be able to do this. And then my first real project, I think in 2009, when I was doing someone's kitchen, I think it was $65 an hour. And really, that was just reading on the internet and understanding what people were charging. You could see that if there's someone in a firm that has a lot of overhead and has these like billable rates that they're supposed to hit more on like the legal, like a lawyer, then obviously your rates are a lot higher. Where if you don't have as much overhead, think of it this way: if you're using a student version of AutoCAD, your rates can be less than if you're paying for your own AutoCAD license and you're paying for InDesign. So all of that stuff is overhead and needs to be configured into like basically what you need to live to make sense of how you're charging. But I would just say there's not one book or one resource to figure it out, but I would say like do some research and find 3 or 4 resources and then find kind of a common thread among them and then find out what works for you. And ultimately it's just like, it's art, right? You're able to charge what people are willing to pay. And a lot of times the joke is like, if you give a fee or a proposal and if they didn't tell you it was too high, then it probably was too low. So think of it that way.
Yep. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I heard that from an illustrator who would he would charge twice as much. Like he would meet up with a client and say, like he would decide, I want to make $5,000 for this illustration job. He would tell them it's 10,000, and then see if he could get a higher amount. But when it would kind of like negotiate, if they were getting into a negotiation phase, he would be willing to come down, but he would make it like, because I want to work with you,
Right.
I'll go a little bit lower for you.
Yeah. The psychology, the psychology and the art of negotiation is a very real thing. There's a woman who I did this program called the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business program, and she was a professional negotiator for like NBA athletes, and she taught us that you have a target, you have a goal, and then you basically have like your bottom line. And you know what you have to make to pay the bills and keep the lights on. And that could be like the five, let's say that's 3,000. 5,000 is the goal, but 10,000 was the target. So really anything over the 5 is like a real, but then, and it sometimes seems like things like that are unethical, but there's a lot of, when it comes to contract negotiations, there's a lot of times where us as designers end up doing a lot of work that we didn't intend on doing. And we are a professional services firm, and most of us that do design are doing it because we're passionate and we care and we're looking to be like solve a problem. So even though things come up that weren't in the scope of work, you don't want to just not help out because the project will suffer. So, and clients kind of know that. I always tell, my staff, like, the fact that you're doing what you love for a living is probably worth, I don't know, 20 to 30% of your salary compared to if you were an accountant or if you were like in a law firm. So there is something to be said about doing design and really like, I would say I have the greatest job in the world. And I think most people that work here at PTD, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I think they really love what they do for a living. And that's worth something, right? There's a lot of people that are miserable going to work every day. So.
Good point. Okay, I got it. I want to share the screen.
Okay.
And then I'm going to share. I'll just do the whole screen and then thing. All right, good. Can you all see this?
Is there a way you can make it full screen, Duffy?
Yeah.
Now I'm just being picky.
That's okay. No, that's good. No, I'm gonna do this differently. I'm just gonna show only. Whoops. No.
And if anyone wants to poke around on the PTD website while I'm talking, and then if there's specific questions or projects, like I'd prefer to make it more of a conversation than me speaking. So.
No, that's not what I wanted. Just a second. Sorry about this. Let me get the. There we go. Enter full screen. There we go.
Cool. So if you just want to, so I'll give you an idea. So this is a kind of a template that we use for proposals that go out, whether it's an RFP or whether it's a proposal. We used to do everything just in a Word document, or not a Word document, like a Microsoft Office, boring document. And we saw some proposals from some other firms, and we thought, well, everything we do is so visual, so why not at least make this a little bit more beautiful? So this is just a little about us section. I think I told you about this already. We do hospitality, and really hospitality and high-end residential seems to be where most of our work is right now, but I've never became like focused on one single niche, just because I think staying pretty versatile and nimble in that department is why we've been able to continue to grow for the past, 13 years. So we do bring a holistic approach to each project. So helping the client develop the narrative and asking a lot of questions, this project becomes an extension. It's the client's, it's an extension of them. It's not ours. So we really want to make sure that there's some heart and soul and meaning in what we're doing. And we really touch on everything from custom furniture, millwork, lighting, branding, really everything. So.
Are you working on a puzzle in this?
Oh, in that picture, that's a puzzle. We have an office puzzle going most of the time.
Cool. All right.
Which, okay, so brand focus. So
I'm gonna go back.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
So really being thoughtful. I always ask people like everything, whether we're picking a tile for a bathroom or picking a plumbing fixture or designing like a huge large scale mural, we develop a pretty strong concept at the beginning of the project, which really becomes like the pillar and the foundation of what we do. And so even as simple as like we're designing this honky tonk in Nashville right now, and we're designing like we're pretty far along DD, which is design development, and right now we're getting into all the bathrooms, and we're looking back on our original concept and saying, okay, because like as designers we can just go off in these crazy tangents. So our primary, being thoughtful about the concept and direction, it's a gut check throughout the project from beginning to end. This is the team. This is a combination of architects and interior designers and some project managers. I think I've talked all about this. This is an image of a brewery that we did in Metro Detroit called Axel Brewing Company or Livernois Tap. So it was supposed to be, like a take on a European beer hall. So it was supposed to have a bit of kind of a Bavarian feel to it. We did something neat here on the back bar. It was all just, inexpensive 4x4 ceramic tile, but we did these big chunky shelves with it and did these little arches. And then on the front of the bar, made it look, like timber with exposed fasteners. So, but still pretty industrial.
Where is that?
This one's in Ferndale, Michigan.
Very close to where I grew up.
Oh, really?
I'm from Huntington Woods.
Oh, I didn't know that. Look at that. Yeah, I live in Pleasant Ridge, so we're like 1 block over from each other. Cool. So this, I'm going to show you, Duffy mentioned that you guys, to understand like the process, I'll show you because we really do still sketch and draw by hand. So this is Sanders Fine Chocolate. So we did their flagship store that's here in Metro Detroit. We're going to talk about the concept that'll outline the mood and feel as well as the direction of the project. So we select mood images, create a concept floor plan. Usually what we present as concept is loose materials, floor plan, and really a narrative and some imagery. So you can go to the next slide, Duffy. Oh, can you go to the next slide, Duff?
That one?
Yeah, you can go next. No, it's not changing on my end.
It's not
That's why.
changing on your end?
No,
Anybody else?
I'm seeing it change.
That's weird.
Cool. So like I have here, like this is the montage image of Sanders.
Okay,
Old
that's
photos.
that's weird. So I don't see it. So I'm just going to look at it. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just look at it on my screen.
Okay. Yeah.
So really, Sanders was a classic, a Detroit classic. It was one of the original soda fountains in downtown Detroit. So it needed to have like that right amount of nostalgia, but at the same time, we wanted to bring it into this century. So some of these are pictures of spaces, kind of where we got some of the ideas on materials, but really it's more of like a look, a feel, and a mood. We don't generally go through these pages with the client like one by one. We just say, is there anything on this page that, is offensive to you essentially? Like, or does everything here resonate with you in terms of like look and feel of what you want your brand and your new space to be? So you'll see there's a lot of black and white. There's a lot of natural wood. So you'll see once we get through the presentation where the white oak, the black and the white, and really that kind of traditional soda fountain comes through.
All right.
So, all right. You can go to the next one.
Plan.
Yep. So the floor plan here, you'll see this is pretty basic right now. We're still showing things we show things drafted by hand or sketched by hand early on because I think it makes the client, it seems like they haven't committed to anything yet. It's still a bit of an art project and it's a collaborative process. So we are still showing things. That has changed a little bit, but this was one from quite a bit ago. But we do still show a lot of hand sketches. You'll see some of the ideas here, like the way it says their logo, the way it says Sanders, like when you walk in the front door. Duffy, if you would just want to like hover your mouse over, I don't know if my mouse probably isn't showing it, but yeah, so you'll see how some of these ideas, like even though it's concept and it's just a floor plan, you'll see how these things start to really take shape. And it's surprising how much of this stuff at concept ends up being exactly what's built. So on the right side of the floor plan, you'll see there was like this hearth fireplace that would be this spot to, to gather around. The interesting thing about Sanders is they get major traffic, field trips from schools, but then also field trips from senior centers. So this place had to resonate on a pretty wide range for a pretty wide audience, from young school kids to, seniors that grew up going to Sanders in downtown Detroit. And so they just had a little taste of that history. You'll see this will get developed more. So, and then basically at this point, things are loose. Nothing's really designed on how it's going to look. We're just showing you, here's what we heard. Here's where we're going to put ice cream. Here's where we're going to put candy. Here's where we're going to start display shelves. And then the production kitchen, there was a pretty deep programming phase that you guys don't see right here where we asked a lot of questions. They wanted to like showcase that they bake all their own cookies in-house. They wanted that smell there. So you'll see more of that. So you can go to the next slide, Duffy.
Could I add something here?
Please.
A couple things. I know the sentimental attachment to Sanders is real. I have memories of going there with my grandmother who lived in Detroit almost her entire life. So I really love seeing this personally.
Well, I'm glad I picked this one then. That's
well, and it is also in that case. So I guess it's a good idea. It's a good example of how like emotional people get about design. Because to me, it's like it makes me happy to see it.
Yeah, well, and that, I mean, especially, that's one of the big challenges is like one of the first things, and I learned this early on, is I ask, you could walk into a space and be like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But you have to that's where the psychology part, you have to be really careful with what you say, and you ask questions. Well, what can't stay? What's important to you? What has to stay? And what does this brand mean to you? Like it's funny because a lot of people instead of Sanders say Saunders, and we ask about that, and it's such a mainstay and so common here that when I ask the owner, is it Sanders or Saunders? He's like, well, the family's name is Sanders, but so many people have pronounced it Saunders for so long that it could be either. So it's just neat how this brand it belongs to kind of the people, and you have to be sensitive to that and really thoughtful when you're designing it. So
my mom persistently referred to it as Saunders.
Yeah, a lot of people do, even though there's no U. And a lot of what they say is because of the cursive, it like lends itself to like feeling like there should be a U there, but there's no U.
And another thing about the prep, like drawing, like hand drawing, hand drafting. A few years ago, I took a group to Gensler in Chicago, and I asked about drawing. Do you still use drawing by hand? And the designer that gave us the tour said yes. They have fewer people in their firm that can do it to the level that they need it. But she said when they would do like a fully rendered presentation, like here's what this is going to look like, often their clients felt kind of left out of the process.
Yeah.
And they were disappointed. They're like, well, when am I going to get to participate?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, you don't ever want them to feel like it's done. This thing you see on TV with the big unveiling is just, I don't think it's realistic, and it's not a collaborative process because it's much easier to sell an idea when they think it's theirs. Mm-hmm. So,
cool.
Okay.
Now we're ready.
Sure. So these were just some hand sketches for the exterior. So it's this like Bavarian looking building in the middle. It's funny if you guys look up where this place is. It's right in the middle of M59, which is a very busy highway surrounded by like strip malls and stuff. But this thing has been there since I was a kid. and it was the Morley Chocolate Factory, and then Sanders took it over. So these were just some, and we did landscape plan. Like they really wanted to become a spot where people would come, get ice cream in the evenings, and really drive that evening business. So we had some thoughts on how to kind of like activate the front space with some landscaping, a little garden, and once again, all still just very sketchy and loose at this point. So we'll talk about schematic and DD and design development. And each one of these phases, generally, when you're putting together a proposal, there's a certain amount of hours that it takes the team to create each phase. And there's a dollar amount that's associated with each phase. And you explain this to the client. You know, we're very transparent. We say we have our projects, they're in 3 phases. And here's the deliverables in each phase. Here's how long each phase takes. And here's the cost associated with each phase. So you guys, we're recording this, and Duffy, you have this, so you guys can go through this a little bit like in more detail. I want to make sure there's time for questions. So this just lays out exactly what the deliverables are. Obviously, we've streamlined it, but this will be good to use afterwards. So now you can see the floor plan in schematic. Now we've drafted the floor plan. We've made sure that all of our ideas fit. Things are just starting to get a little bit more technical. You can see at this point, we were still trying to place a vintage old Ford pickup truck that would become merchandise inside the space. Really, you know, this is at sketch, you know, everything we sketch is to scale, but still, once you've put everything into the drawing, you know, things change, things grow. You start to get like kitchen equipment from the client and start placing like actual things, exact display sizes. So what you don't see is there's a revision phase and like a deep dive into like client's feedback between concept and this. So
Samples?
yeah, so we start to present furniture and materials. This usually is all presented in person with like materials so they can touch and feel, but I put it into a digital for you guys. So you can start to see the materials that we're using. Not everything has an exact home at this point, but it's starting to, you know, like that penny round or the hex tile that you saw in the initial concept. Some of these bright paint colors, they're coming through in graphics and in furniture and seats. So we're showing them all of this stuff at this point. We're starting to show them furniture direction. And really this is for them to react to say, okay, I like it, I don't like it. Once again, is there anything on this page that doesn't resonate with you? So you'll see where some of the stuff lays out as we go further along. So we start to build it in SketchUp at this point, and it shows you, like, once again, it's still a collaboration, right? Like they're seeing it in 3D, but it still feels cartoony. Like we intentionally don't layer in too much detail right now, so they still feel like they're part of the process. So, you know, I used to be like a pretty hardcore interior elevations only guy, but I've finally lost that battle and realized how important of a tool SketchUp is. And we're using it earlier and earlier in the phase just so we can kind of understand scale and proportion and hash out some of our ideas pretty quickly. So we're starting to see what those display tables look like, and really like distribution of materials and color you start to see, but it's still sketchy, just computer sketchy. So
yeah. Okay, so construction document or documentation?
Yep. So I think that I put this in here. So like we gave this presentation to another group of students they were all in high school. So we wanted them to understand the technical side of this. So finalized plans, elevations, sections, schedules. So you can just flip through these quickly. Are you flipping through them? And there you go. So this starts to, you can see, I mean, these are pretty big jumps just for the presentation's sake, but you can start to see these are what the construction documents look like. I don't know what else is in here, Duffy, so you can keep.
So these are like a page of elevations?
Yeah, so these are all the elevations and section cuts. So you can start to see the awnings over the doors and the window, the placement of decorative sconces, and then you really start to see how the shelving is going to play, you know, the heights of shelves, this is where a lot of, you check all of your alignments. I mean, really this stuff has all been done in DD, but construction documentation and DD, they kind of go hand in hand in our firm, depending on whether we're the architect of record or not. So, and you can go back. So, and then this, I just threw some professional photography in here. So that initial idea of Sanders across the entryway. This is, what it developed into. And it's neat because you see like that blue paint, you see that hex tile, and you see all of that white oak and the white and the black. And to look at this image, and I say, if you go back to a concept page and lay it on the table next to a picture of the real space, you really want them to communicate with each other and relate to each other. So, and I feel like Sanders is a good example of that. So I think there's some other photos if you want
Is that red ribbon from the sample board?
to. No, I think this was This was during Christmas time, so that was a coincidence. But I think
Yeah.
in some of the other photos, you'll see where the other pops of color
Yeah.
come in.
That's
You can
nice.
see it back on the bench with the striped awning.
Mhm.
So we brought kind of that traditional, market feel, but on the inside. This is that expo kitchen where they're making all their own chocolate chip cookies, and the smell is just coming through there. But it had to be fully enclosed because it was a commercial kitchen. So you can see like where that great navy blue comes in on the wainscoting below.
It's nice.
Thanks. And then, you can see these pops of color. That's the fireplace. So like they ended up not doing the wingback chairs. They said nobody will really sit in them. So, a lot of that's one of the original Sanders trucks that unfortunately the truck got axed from the presentation. So you learn to kind of celebrate your wins and not focus on your losses, because you definitely, a lot of the ideas are great at the beginning, but budgets and stuff, but I think this here is pretty true to the original concept. So
Yeah, I love that's like the pattern of circles.
thank you. Yeah, I love we had these stools made. They were custom steel stools. They're mounted to the ground. So instead of doing like a traditional soda fountain where the stools are round mounted at the counter, they wanted to move them out here, which I think works still very well.
Cool.
And I think that might be, maybe there's one more, but yeah, that, just that was, I thought that was a good example to show you guys of a brand that maybe you've heard of that could kind of take you through the process. So
It's great. I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions for Patrick about that?
I mean, at least lie to me and tell me you guys find that kind of interesting, what we just went through, right? Just everyone just nod their head if it was somewhat better than looking at their phones for a little bit.
No, that was really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Hey, I do have a
Thank you.
question. So I'm curious what you think is like the best job to get when you get out of school. Is it retail? Is it working for like an architectural firm? Is it working for like an independent designer? What do you think?
Well, I guess it depends on what you think your interest is in. I think if I could go back and do it again, I probably would have stayed working in a firm for a little bit longer. I was, but at the same time, it seemed to have worked out. So there's a lot of jobs out there with big firms like your Smith Group and your Genslers, where you're the interiors department inside of a huge architecture empire where you only pick finishes, which is fine if that's your specialty and that's what you love to do. But I would say for me personally, being a part of that small firm where we were technical, we had like one or two architects on staff, but we were still if you want to do, I struggled with whether I should go into architecture or interior design. And the more I read about the courses and studied and learned about it, interior design seemed more fun. It seemed like it made a bigger difference in people's day to day. And so I would just ask yourself, like, do you want to design a building? Are you really into the technical side and building systems, or do you love like, tactile finishes and fabrics? And, I mean, residential compared to commercial is a pretty different world. Because residential, you have a lot of, it's very intimate, right? It's you're in these people's homes. You're talking about the way they cook, the way they live, where their kids take off their shoes, where they hang up their coats, where they want to sit and eat dinner and watch TV. And I mean, right down to like how husbands and wives like to brush their teeth. I mean, we are and that's it's a great thing that I've done, but it's also challenging for my team, right? Because one day we're working on a 165 room hotel where it's a bit of a production, like, okay, we've developed a model room. Now we have to do this big giant DD package. It's production. but then the next, 3 hours later, they're meeting with a client talking about, do we need to integrate a custom step stool because the wife is 5'1" and the husband's 5'6", and they have a great cookbook collection, right? So I know that's a huge long answer, but I would ask yourself what's most important to you and what do you love? What do you love? And then try to find a job and say, okay, am I going to get a chance to do that? And even if you go somewhere and you're at an architecture firm for a year or two and you're like, this is really technical, all I'm doing is SketchUp and I don't love it, that's still going to be very beneficial to whatever you decide to do with your career. So don't ever think this sucks, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, because everything, even something you decide you don't want to do, is super beneficial to leading you to what you do want to do.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's good. I think that sometimes that's what the value of internships.
Yeah.
The first
Yep.
internship could be just about anywhere that's relevant.
Yeah.
And it helps you to orient yourself and decide, okay, this is what's interesting about this. I'm glad I'm learning these things, but I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. But I have a better idea of what I do want.
Yeah, and even on the internship side, we're having more and more students ask if they can come in and just shadow for a few hours even. And I've been really open to that because I think the sooner you can kind of get a real look inside a firm and see if you think you're a fit, like the better it's going to be. So don't be afraid to ask those questions and just say, I'd love to just be a fly on the wall for half a day and just follow someone around, and try it at a big firm, try it at a small firm. You never know, even reach out to people that, go on a firm's website that you're interested in and scroll through the staff bios and pick someone. Most of their emails are on there, and just say, hey, I'm currently in interior design school. I'd love to have coffee with you. I do that stuff all the time because I really enjoy it. And maybe it's beneficial for both of you. Maybe they decide, oh, well, here's someone that I think is really ambitious that we could bring into our firm, and it's beneficial to you because you can get a real honest look into like what the industry's like. So
yeah, that's a really good idea. And there are a lot of people that are happy, like as Patrick is, just happy to talk to people who are interested, just like, what do I do with my...
Yeah, and if they say no, then good. You probably wouldn't want to work with them anyway.
Yeah. And
Duffy has brought in some other speakers that have said similar things, that it's important to remember that the job you pick when you're leaving school is not the job you're going to stay in for the rest of your life. It's important to try things out and see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah,
very much so.
Absolutely.
Very much so.
Yeah. And you can ask if any of you want help with finding who should I talk to, who should I ask? Ask me, ask Carl, ask Tim, Brenda, anyone, and just say we'll tell you. I know people because of my time teaching at Harrington. I know a lot of people in the interior design business in Chicago, and maybe if any of you are going to spend you find yourself in the Detroit area and you're like Patrick guy, I'm gonna hit him up and see if I can stop by because it would probably be really cool. I'm sure it would be great to see the office.
Yeah, I would totally be open to that. And Julie, just to piggyback on your question one more time, I would say, so one thing, right now we're about 11 people, and, people here are sketching, and then they're like doing construction documents, they're presenting, they're pulling finishes, they're pulling imagery and doing lots of pinup, and if you like doing it all, then I'd say maybe try to find a smaller shop to work in to start to see if you really do like it all, because people here, we're boutique size, so we don't have like someone that's just, a drafts person, someone that only does SketchUp. We have people that are better at certain things than others, but if you really want to try it all, I think that tends to happen in a smaller firm more, regularly. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay, I have another one.
Sure.
What is, do you hire people right out of school? And what are the things that you're looking for that they have? Do you like them to have like the 3D type software, or more drafting skills? What do you look for?
So that's a great question. Yes, we hire people right out of school. I would say that I learned a while ago to hire for probably more personality and work ethic and less on skill set, because the skill set can be taught in an environment like our office. Obviously, we want to see the work that you've done, but I probably lean. It's interesting in school because the projects that people do. Back when I was in college, everyone's portfolio was like a dance club with the cafe. It was like just kind of interesting, like that you see these trends in what like studio school projects are. For me, it's probably less about the design and more about the layout. If I like the way someone's resume is thoughtfully laid out and maybe a little bit clever, and the portfolio is, I look at alignments, I look at the fonts that were chosen, I look at the way that people, those to me are the bigger telltale signs than the furniture you chose or what 3D program you rendered in. I do ask a lot of specific questions. How did you make this portfolio? What did you enjoy about this project? But obviously you want people to be able to, if someone came in and their portfolio was all hand rendered beautiful 3D or two sketches, and you have to have a very specific role in the office for someone like that to fill that need. So you want people to be able to do drafting, hand sketching, but I really want to be people to be able to explain what their process was to create whatever it is I'm looking at is probably most important.
That is a very good point. I teach portfolio for the interior design students, and um, one of the that is like something that I think that I've heard from employers or other like prospective like people who have like sometimes I'll have a visitor come in and like midterm critique, and often people want to see process work in the portfolio. So save your sketches for at least one project. All the like just the messy stuff that shows like how you thought through it, and include that, because that helps the employer see how you think. You can see how someone thinks without having to speak to them, and then you can speak to them and just get an idea of what kind of process they engage in, because that is very important. And someone I forget who told me this. It's from someone at Harrington, maybe like 10, 15 years ago, was had recommended a student to go interview for an internship at a big firm, and the student was a good student. Went talked to them, had the interview, and after the interview, the employer called the professor that had recommended the student and said, "Well, I have some notes for you and your student. When I asked about process and asked the student, like, how did you arrive at this conclusion in your design? The answer that the student gave was, I don't know, my teacher told me to."
Mm.
And they didn't want that intern because they thought, you don't understand your own process. You can do what you're told, but we want someone that understands the process better, or at least
Yes.
and can articulate it.
Yeah, or it just has an original thought, like there's a lot of stuff that happens in this office that people come up with that it doesn't make it into a project, whether I don't love it or a client doesn't love it or it just doesn't work, but there's still something to be said about it, a great idea, an original thought, right? So,
And even if
yeah.
someone did tell you, do it this way, when you present it to somebody else, you don't have to tell them that you did it because somebody else told you. You can say like, this is the reason I did it.
Sure. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways you could, we worked through a few things, and this, this is a solution that we came up with,
And
so.
none of us, like, one of the first phrases I learned in college, you cannot create in a vacuum.
Nope.
You've got to get your ideas from someplace else. So no one expects you to be the originator of every idea. Um, and it is a collaborative process with your, professor, with your client, with your project manager, with your team. And so you don't have to, I think I think learning how to talk about your own work it's important. And if you feel like you don't know that because it's not emphasized, um, then you should ask.
Yeah.
Ask us.
One other example I'll give that I've noticed a few times. If I'm assuming that if you're going to school for interior design, you've all, whether you have homes or you live with someone else or live with family, you've decorated or laid out your bedroom or painted a wall or helped your family renovate a kitchen or renovated your own kitchen. Don't be afraid to document work that you've done for a friend or for yourself and something you're proud of, and include that in your portfolio and be able to speak about that. Like when I lived in Chicago, I lived in, I think, 2 or 3 different spots, and I would get permission from the landlord to like paint the cabinets, and I'd get friends to come. I would always transform a space, but that's just how I was. And then I wish that I would have documented some of that stuff, because it would have been so interesting to have the photographs, one, but then I think any real life experience that can be included in a portfolio is super beneficial for those of us that are reviewing portfolios.
Yeah, and I encourage that. Students already do it. One student, she she designed she designed her apartment. She specifically painted, did a lot of stuff that was affordable. She also went out before, during the portfolio class, she went out and bought um, furnishings and accessories and made her place look even better than it does when the way she normally lives in it. And she had a friend come over and photograph it. A friend who was a wedding photographer came over and shot the interior. And then she returned all the stuff that she bought.
Yeah, that's
So she staged her own place. It looked great. And when she put it in her portfolio, she referred to it as like eclectic 6 corners apartment in Chicago.
Yeah, no one needs to know. My first website was pictures of my parents' basement that I had built as a carpenter. I worked at Design Within Reach, but I was laid off, so I borrowed a bunch of furniture this basement was very rustic, but I put like a Fritz Hansen egg chair in there. I put like a cowhide rug. I borrowed like some decorative, modern lighting, and I had a friend that was like a budding photographer. He photographed that place and my loft, and my first website was my parents' basement and my loft in Detroit. And I did the same thing. It was like, downtown Detroit, Woodbridge Loft, Winkler Mill Residence, or whatever. And people don't know. That is a visual interpretation of your aesthetic. And I think that is perfect to include in a portfolio if you have an example.
Yeah. And you really don't have to tell them.
Nope.
Because it doesn't matter, because you designed it.
Yep. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, what you're looking for is skills and all this stuff, but let's be honest, like taste is important, right? Like we're in the world of aesthetics here. Like people, you got to have good taste.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so, at least.
I agree. Well, you can imagine, some of the well, it's one of the things like in the like when you have like styles come and go. Like there are sometimes you have styles that are executed very badly.
Oh yeah.
Just trashy, like some like Art Deco that's like mass produced and trashy and like really confusing. Um, which is something that happened in like the 30s and 40s because it became popular and then everybody wanted it, but you couldn't necessarily afford a stage set from, a Marlene Dietrich film.
Yeah, some of the things that you had us draw when I was in your drawing class, like the architecture varied from the Mies van der Rohe spaces to I think it was the Helmut Jan building, the Thompson.
Oh yeah, Oh yeah, that was
Isn't that coming down or something? Isn't there?
no,
Isn't
someone's buying it.
yeah? I knew I read something about it.
Because there was talk about demolishing it, and a lot of people, are won't talk. They're like, no way, you can't get rid of it, and other people are like, it's a piece of garbage. Just go in and you'll find out. But
Yeah.
we had a that's that was that freshman seminar where we went out and did field sketching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I still have my sketchbook from that.
Yeah.
I saved it. It's so funny.
yeah. It was a fun class to teach, but I know it was challenging at times, especially like when the times when we would go to the Thompson Center, um, because it's noisy.
Mhm.
It's hard. Like there's so much like light and shadow and color, and it's at first it's hard to see the edges, and you need to start by drawing edges,
Sure.
not
Plus,
deep.
Plus, it didn't help that there was like the Chicago DMV in the lower level of it, so the
Yes.
people watching was pretty intense.
A lot of miserable people going up and down the stairs. But I had like we early I think it was like 2002 or 2003. I went to a lecture by former Governor Thompson, who chose the design, and he said that people were like, when he chose that design, he loved it because it was unusual. And some people said, this is a waste of space. Look at this atrium. And he said, no, I think it's a celebration of space because there's all this big open space that you do not normally get. He said, I did not want this like solid block, just like dreary place to go. He said, at least it's interesting, which got a laugh out of some people. But I think he's right.
Well, and that goes back to what you said. Like, if someone, at least he had an answer, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, doesn't mean it's right or wrong. But if someone just said, I don't know, I just liked it, or
Yeah.
someone told me to pick it. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a really good example of what you were saying about being able to talk about your work. Sorry, the radiators in my office are going on.
That's all right. So the Thompson Center, that would be it will. I'd be interested. I forget. I think somebody is buying it to turn it into something. Any other questions for Patrick? I hope this has all been very interesting and illuminating to all of you. I mean, it can be a lot, but this is Harper is a 2-year program, and then you're off. You either can go in, transfer to a 4-year school. I think especially if you want to do commercial design, a lot of commercial firms want a 4-year degree just because they want a lot of what you will learn in the third and fourth year. But as like we went to Gensler, someone asked, does Gensler hire someone with just an associate's degree? And the designer said, yes, if you can do what we need. Like if you've got an associate's degree and you're good at what we want, then we'll hire you.
I would agree with that. I mean, obviously, it's funny. People come here with a 4-year degree from a couple different, schools around here. There's CCS, which is like, a very creative school that has a lot of the students go into the automotive interior program from here because of GM and Ford being around here. But they teach great concept and big ideas, but they lack a lot of like business and like technical skills. Wayne State's program, so it's funny, I would agree with that. It's less about the degree and more about like your ability to want to work and what you're interested in doing, and I really believe that a lot of the skills can be taught in the office for someone who's motivated, so.
Yeah, I mean they do have a lot. I mean they do have mostly like interior designers with bachelor's degrees, partly because they will learn a lot in the second and fourth year, and it's extremely like Gensler is extremely competitive. They have an internship program with students from all over the world. But that's still, it's like if you're good, you don't have to have the degree.
No.
So Harrington was a 4-year. It wasn't just it was all 4 years for. So anybody that would want to do a 4-year program, transferring from Harper, where would they go from here?
In Chicago, Columbia College is, and like is like probably your best option. School of the Art Institute has for a BFA in interior. They call it interior architecture. There is no job of interior architect. So it's
No, it's just for people that are insecure about saying interior designer.
exactly, and it's institutions like they want to make it. The Someone just asked me a question, but yeah, it's about the institution wanting to sound like more um, like I guess serious.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess that I think what are the original the four original professions, right? It's architecture, legal, like the law, a doctor, um, an accountant, right? I think those are I think if you look back, and I think that a lot of schools like interior design, the word interior design has gotten a bad rap. I mean, it's basically been this turf battle between architecture and interior design for a very, very long time, and interior designers have been fighting for accreditation, and especially in the state of Michigan for so long. So interior architecture is just, I think they would say that it lends itself to a more technical degree, but I disagree with that. Like at Harrington, it was extremely technical program. We had building systems, architectural detailing, millwork detailing. Um, and I guess the other thing I would just say, like, I'll leave on this note, like any of you that really wants to, be comfortable on a job site, learn to, when we have staff that have owned their own homes and renovated something and opened up a wall or understood how plumbing works or understand how heat gets transferred through a house or air, just having an understanding of how things work and systems work and walls are built will just give you such a leg up and be beneficial to you no matter whether you're on your own or whether you're looking for a job. So, because a big part of what we do is talk with contractors a lot, and the better you can speak the language, the better off you'll be. So,
Yeah. So someone asked me in chat why Harrington got shut down.
Well, that's
Emotional, like,
yeah.
but I would summarize. So right around the time, like there was a guy named Robert Marks, who owned the school. He was a single proprietor. It was like a small school of around 400, 450 people, like students. Um, and when he decided to retire, he sold it to the Career Education Corporation. He didn't tell the faculty he was doing it. He just he wanted the money because, as like several of my colleagues said, we would have put the money together and bought it from him. So, but he got a lot of money because they wanted to buy. It was the 9th-ranked interior design program in the country at the time when he sold it. So my first year teaching was the old program, which was like you could only get a BFA by going daytime going during the day, and associates and diplomas were in the evening. And Harrington was one like this. The Career Ed Corporation changed it so that you could go to school in blocks of like morning, afternoon, evening, which was convenient. But they also marketed the hell out of the place to where the enrollment shot up so fast that we told them, if you keep doing this, in about 5 years, there won't be jobs for all of our graduates because we're going to have too many people. And that's exactly what happened. And so they tried new programs, but anyway, long story short, they overloaded Harrington. They overloaded
Greed.
the
To answer your question, greed. Greed is what happened to Harry.
Exactly. They didn't really care about the brand. They didn't really care about the school or anybody in it. They were making money for shareholders. I refused to take the stock options because I felt it was unethical for me to own stock in CEC because I knew what they were about. But the the crash of the economy in 2008 really hurt higher education because loans were almost impossible. It was like banks weren't giving banks were just about they very very nearly crashed, and it just came back slowly, and it was coming back slowly, and they decided we're going to cut the school loose. So 2015 was it. Students were given the option to transfer to Columbia College, and so since then, there's been no Harrington. So anyway, that was an aside, but I miss it. It would be nice if it were there because it was like Harrington. Harrington was like the foil to the School of the Art Institute, which is like Creative Center for Creative Studies in Detroit, where it's about ideas and creativity, but like how are you going to build it? And it's like, someone else is gonna.
It was a wonderful education. I was so fortunate to have found it and saw that infomercial one night. Honestly, it was wonderful. So
I think it was great if they'd given us the resources to keep the school going. They just didn't give
Yeah.
us the resources. They kept saying like, okay, we're gonna like do all this development and like new, like they were gonna build a model shop, and then they would be like, oh yeah, we're not gonna do that now. And so yeah, they could have done it, they just didn't. So watch out for if it's like for-profit education, they're it's like their number one thing is like shareholders and then the executives, and eventually they get down to like the actual institutions and the students.
yeah.
So anyway, but on a positive note here, you have just met Patrick, and you now maybe have a better idea of what it's like. I mean, you know what it has like what it's like for one designer and his team to do interior design, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Feel free to you can find me pretty easy. Feel free to drop me a note if you have questions or if you are going to be in the Detroit area. We have a really cool studio. There's pictures of our studio on our website. I think it's just Woodward Avenue office. You can see there's pictures, the one with Birdie, the black dog. We're right downtown Detroit across from Comerica Park with a great view. So
Cool.
please feel free to stalk us and send us emails and follow us on Instagram or whatever people do now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thanks,
thank you.
Patrick. It was
Thank
very
you.
informative. Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
All right. So,
Duffy, I'll see you. I'm going to
all
sign
right,
off.
Patrick. Good to see you.
Right. Yep.
I'll be in Detroit in some year.
Cool. Let me know.
Find you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So, thank you, everyone, and I will see you in class, or I'll see you around school if you're not in a class with me this semester. Bye.